I'm just checking it's working. Okay, I believe we are recording now, and I need to let you know that you are being recorded. So all that will be seen on the screen will be your icons, which identify you. So it identifies the people up here. I think that Debbie, who is signing today, will be visible all the way through, and I'll be visible, and anything I share on my screen will be visible. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now, because what I want to do is just talk about what you should be able to have seen thus far. So I'm going to start off by going, I'm in Teams there, aren't I? I don't want to go to Teams. Let me get rid of that. Okay, here we go. Let me just return here. So I'm going to just choose one person to act as my assistant, Georgia Shedden. What I'd like you to do, please, is just let me know by miking yourself and just telling me whether you can see the shared screen. Oh, great, Georgia, thank you very much indeed. That's interesting. So thank you for doing that. So I can't see the chat at the same time as sharing my screen, which is good for me to know how that works. Great, thanks, Georgia. That's great. So I'm back in. Oops. Let me go back in there. I think I have to start that again. Let's just let's unshare. We're just going to have to get used to my not entirely smooth approach. Here we go. So I'm in the Padlet that I set up last week, and I invited you to add self-pen portraits. Now this it was a useful thing to do. The reason why I've asked you to put up a pen portrait is that as part of the assessment for this module, you are going to be doing an evaluation of assessment practice, the ways that teachers assess pupils. And I thought it was useful to go through this process because when you think about the way that assessment is used with students, I want you to think about how appropriate the assessment systems are for the needs of the learner. So I've asked you to put some anonymous pen portraits up here. You'll start your assignment with a pen portrait, but I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you some guidance on how to do that, but very much along the lines of what you've just done here. So just pick out some, I'm going to pick some anonymous students here. So we've got lots of student A's, which is great, or student N's or student C's, that's great. A good thing to think about, this was useful for you as well when you're doing a project, because you want to have anonymity with your participants when you're doing projects. So we've got student A, age 20, lots of 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds. Student A, age 20, interests, hobbies, cooking, languages spoken, English, academic strength, time management. I'm so delighted to see that so many of you have the academic strength of time management, because you really need that in your third year. Lots of stuff to do involving time management. Similarly, there, student C, a year older, interests, hobbies, gaming. I'm assuming that's kind of computer gaming. Languages spoken, English, academic strengths, time management and planning. So interesting again, sort of organisational skills there. Ditto, student N, an interest in babysitting. I hope you get some money for it as well, student N. Language spoken, academic strengths, organisation skills. Now, the reason why I asked you to think about those particular elements, age perhaps is significant, and that will be more significant with the work, the assessment that you look at for the assignment. So when you're looking at the assignment, you're going to be looking at the assessment of younger learners. So you're going to be looking at the assessment of pupils in, for example, nurseries or primary schools, possibly younger learners in special educational needs settings. Their age might be significant, because the way that you may assess a child aged 4 might be very different from the way that you assess a child aged 11. You might use a different set of approaches with a 4-year-old to the approaches that you might use with an 11-year-old. So age is significant. Interests, hobbies is significant because a lot of the literature around assessment and pedagogy, so how we teach, a lot of it focuses on the idea of effective teaching being built around the learner's interests. So knowing what the learner is interested in could be used as a method for assessing the learner's understanding of something, to assess their skills, their knowledge, their understanding, etc. Language is spoken. That could be very useful in order to support your understanding of the learner's abilities, their attainment. It might be, so I can see that student B is a speaker of English and Bengali. It might be that you have a learner who is a speaker of English and Bengali, but who is relatively new to English. So they are, if you like, becoming bilingual. And it may be that knowing that there are particular targets of that pupil in the acquisition of English, that may help you when using assessment to support that pupil's learning, that student's learning. So that was the purpose here of spending a little time. I hope it didn't spend you more than about take you more than about 3 or 4 minutes to put your pen portraits up there. I suggest you all put your pen portraits up there. That would be great. So that was the function of that. Let me look now at the Aula page. Now, I'm going to return briefly to my main screen. Hello, Debbie, I can see you in action there now, so that's great. So I'm going to share my Aula screen. That's A-U-L-A, Aula. It's a platform that we are using instead of Moodle. So all the stuff that you would usually see on Moodle, you're now going to see on Aula. We're piloting Aula. So it's for us all, it's a pilot, and the argument for Aula is that it's more mobile friendly. So we think that because we're all going to be working online, and many of you are going to be working through these things, we think that Aula might be a better way, a more effective way for you to access materials. But I'm going to make sure that everything goes onto Aula that would usually be on Moodle. I had a question earlier on from Chloe, I think it was from Chloe, about the information around the module guide and the assessment guide. Chloe, I've now added the assessment guide, and I will also add the module guide a little bit later on. I'm sorry I didn't put that onto Aula, but I'll do that. So now I'm going to take us to the Aula page. I'm going to walk through the Aula page just to show you where all the materials are and how that's going to work. So I'm sharing my screen again now. I'm going to go to the Aula screen for this module. I think sometimes it takes a little bit of time using Teams to catch up with the information that's on my screen. So I'm now on the home page of this module, Assessment in Education on Aula. There are bits and pieces here that you can see. So you've got this thing called Community, and on this space called Community, this is my kind of welcome. Just a little bit of explanation there. And I've made a little note then about what I'd like you to do in advance of the session. That's in that space there. Where Aula says Journey, Journey is where the content for each week or each session will appear. So this week we're in week 1. I've stuck a little welcome there. So in the welcome, yes, it's me again. There's a video of me saying, hello, how are you? And talking a little bit about the module, introducing the module there, and kind of what you've got to do for the module. I can't remember what I did here. I suggested I put a hello Padlet out there. I've been using this quite a lot. It's worked to a greater or lesser extent in some modules. So it's just a space where you might say, hello, this is me. This is what I want to get out of a module. If you've not looked at that yet, let's see if anyone's looked at that. It looks like that is a blank at the moment. So there's plenty of space there for you to say hello to each other there. And then we've got the content of the week. So you'll see here, I've got an introduction to the week. And then I've got these pre-live session activities. These are the things that I'm asking you to do for the first hour that's timetabled. These are the activities that I'm asking you to do during that time. And then this is what I'm going to cover in the live session. And these are related resources. So the live session activities that I asked you to complete, there was this one. Now, if you've not had a chance to look at the David Bowd video, have a look at it. It's really good. It's about 4 minutes long. Bowd talks about what teachers are trying to do when they use assessment. So it's a really good evidence-informed account of what the purpose of assessment in higher education is. Higher education is where you are now. So Bowd is specifically talking about assessment at university. But it might be that the principles that he talks about relate to all assessment and feedback. So watch that. It doesn't take very long. When you're watching it, just make some notes and think about your own understanding about what Bowd is saying. The second activity is the pen portrait, and lots of you have done that. Thank you very much indeed. If you haven't done it, do it. And the third activity is a reading. And I would like you to have a look at this journal article. Excuse the noise, I've got somebody drilling upstairs. It's about the purpose of assessment. And what Newstead does is talks about the differences between what students think the purposes of assessment are and what teachers think the purposes of assessment are. So it's really an opportunity for you to start to think critically about what you think assessment is about and what teachers think assessment is about. And it's useful for that because it's raising the question for us all that actually what I think we're doing, what I think I'm doing when I'm assessing, might be different to what you think I'm doing when I'm assessing. And that could be potentially problematic. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment and come back to the session. Okay. Great. Hi, Kate. Sorry, I can only see Debbie at the moment on my screen, but that's fine. Sorry for that noise. It's where I am, and I'm not sure there's anything I can do about it. There's a guy who's doing some plumbing, and he's got his drill out. If it becomes unbearable, I might move to another room and try and make it a bit quieter. So sorry about that. A question there from Asier about accessing Aula. You should have received an email from Aula explaining how to access Aula. So it should be out there. What I will do, if you are not able to access Aula, A-U-L-A, I note that when I say the word Aula, it's coming up in a mixture of things as like Allah and other things like that. So Aula, A-U-L-A. If you're not able to access it, I will contact Connor. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. So it might be that it's ended up in your spam. So check your spam, and thanks, Georgia. Type in Aula in Google, then sign in using your Moodle details. That's fabulous. Okay, so try that first. If that is unsuccessful, then get in touch with me and I will follow up with Aula. The Aula team have been super quick to respond. I had a couple of students in the second year who were unable to access their module, and they've got back to me really quickly and sorted everything out. And Asper, fantastic. You can even download the app on your phone. That's the kind of theory. That's what Aula are going for. They want it to be really mobile friendly. And I know that Moodle isn't terribly mobile friendly. So it's a really good opportunity for you to access things in a smooth way. Great, Asma, Georgia, cool. Thank you very much indeed. That's brilliant. So a bit about Aula. I'm sure Aula will give you lots of opportunities to feed back to them about what works well. And please feedback to me as well. I need to know as well to make sure that I'm using it as effectively as I could do. So that was a little bit about the Aula link. Now, the next thing I would like to talk with you about, because I want to get it out of the way, is assessment of this module. So this module is called Assessment in Education, and I am going to be assessing you in this module. Okay, so I want to look at the assignment for this module. So I'm now going to go and share my screen again. I'm back in Aula again, and I'm going to go into the live session section, and I'm going to sort of talk about what I'm going to talk about today, and I'm going to talk about the assessment. So today I'm going to be picking up on questions from any questions for the week, and we're going to have a Q&A. We'll probably start that before 3 o'clock, but as I said, I'm going to remain online all the way through till 4 o'clock if you've got any individual questions that you want to ask me. We shared a bit of the pre-live session activities, so I've showed you the pen portraits. I think that's a good starting point. If we get time, we may spend some time talking about the purposes of assessment and your views about what the purposes of assessment are. We could do some thinking and enter some of our thoughts in the chat conversation on Teams. And I want to talk about my teaching methods and the module assessment. So I've talked a little bit about the teaching methods. So we're going to be working through Aula and through Teams. We're using those two platforms. So all of the live sessions will happen on Teams. All of the teaching materials will be on Aula. And I'm aiming to keep at least a week in advance. So you can already view the materials for next week, week 2, on Aula. So I'm going to keep it in at least a week in advance, so you can kind of keep ahead if you want to. And there again will be pre-session activities and an overview about what we're going to cover in the live session. And I'm working on the principle that the main live input that I will give you will be for an hour, and then we'll do something different. So today we're going to do this. I'll keep the space open, and you can talk to me. What I would like to move towards is using breakout rooms and having smaller groups and getting you to do some discussion about content. What I would like to start to do with you is share examples of the type of work that you've got to do for this module. So you look at practical examples and you talk about them and you identify what the good features of them are. So you've got a really clear idea about what you've got to do for this module, what you've got to do to succeed in this module. So we'll be using breakout rooms to do that. And then I want you to come back to the whole group session to talk about what you've agreed. So what I would like to do now is talk about the assignment. So I put a link here. This is a brief assignment guidance. I thought it would be useful to have two documents. One, a very simple document covering what you've got to do for the assignment, and then I will also put the module book up as well. But I thought it was useful to actually talk through this with you, so I don't want to panic anybody. I want to be really clear about what you've got to do, and then one of the things you may want to ask me some questions about before we get to 3 o'clock is, you know, what's required. I'm not really clear about that. I'm worried about what that means. Ask me those questions now, so that when we get to 3 o'clock, if you want to, you can go and make yourself a cup of tea, or you can stay and ask some more individual questions. So, AIE assignment guidance. Let me just move this thing. Oops. There we go. I'm going to open that in a new window. And you should be able to see that. I know that there's a little bit of a delay when I'm using my own desktop, but you should now be able to see the assignment guidance for this module, Assessment in Education. I'm just pausing there for a moment just to allow it to boot up and appear on everybody's screen. I'm assuming it's probably going to be there now. So we're talking about, this is the module title, Assessment in Education. It's level 6, as you know. There's the module code, AIE. You've got all of your module codes will start edu_6_. So this one is AIE, project ends PRJ, contextualizing education globally ends CEG, etc., etc. I'm the module leader. What you're going to get from this module, so you're going to get an understanding of approaches to educational assessment. That's what I want you to come out with, to know how educational assessment looks like, what it looks like. And I want you to start to develop an understanding about what good practice in educational assessment looks like, what it looks like if you are using assessment effectively. Core skills, so what the assignment will measure, or what it will look at, is your ability to make links between assessment practice, so what goes on in the classroom, and assessment theory or literature, what the books say. So we're looking at looking at teachers' practice, assessment practice, and evaluating it. So when you evaluate something, you're looking at the strengths and the weaknesses. So I'm going to be asking you to look at the ways that a teacher has used assessment, and I will want you to identify the strengths of their use of assessment, and if there are any weaknesses or areas for them to develop in their use of assessment. And in writing that evaluation, you are going to draw on literature to support your decisions. Links to other modules, well, barriers to learning, because assessment, in a sense, effective use of assessment should have the effect of removing barriers to learning. So there is a connection to barriers to learning, the module that you studied in the second semester last year. And it's also got very clear links to project, because project is about making links between what happens in the classroom and theory. So in a sense, this is a good dry run for you to think about the work that you will do as part of your research for projects. Assessment, so there are several components here. So there'll be formative assessment. So the formative assessment you won't get a mark for. So there will be opportunities for you to look at and discuss various examples of assessment. I'll give you some things to do, and I will give you some feedback on what you will do, what you're doing. The feedback that I give you will have no impact on your final mark. So I won't look at something you're doing as a formative activity and say, well, actually, that's not very good, so I'm going to lower your mark. It doesn't work like that. If it's an exercise we're doing in a live session and you make a suggestion, I can give you some feedback on it, and that's it. It stays within the room, if you like. It doesn't go on and have an impact on your final mark. We will look at some high quality examples of assignments done for this module, and I'll give you an opportunity to think about what they've done, what those students have done, and what makes those examples high quality. So you'll look at high quality examples, and you'll have an opportunity with your peers to identify what the features, what the characteristics of this high quality work is, and I will discuss that with you. And the other thing, the final element here, is I want to work with you to develop your own self-evaluation skills. So when you look at the examples of good assignments, I want you to start to think, okay, there's an example of a good assignment. What do I need to do? What do I need to target in my own practice so that I can write an assignment like that? So I want you to take the experience of looking at examples of good work, of effective assignments marked in the range of 65 to 80. So I want you to look at those examples and think, okay, that's got 65. What do I need to do in order to get a 65, and thinking about what I can do now. What do I need to develop? What do I need to improve so that my assignment can also get a 65 or a 70 or a 75, etc., etc. So those three elements of formative assessment I'm going to be using. So formative assessment is about what the feedback that I can give you and the feedback that you can give yourself in order to improve your achievement in this module. It's interesting for me because by talking about the assessment of this module, I'm also talking about how assessment works, which is actually what the content of this module is. So there's an interesting crossover here that I'm talking about the assessment of the module is about assessment, and actually thinking about what I'm doing with this module may help you thinking about what effective assessment practice might be. Start to ask that question. So that's the formative assessment component. I'm just going to come back to the group again just to see if there are any questions there. I'm not seeing anything at the moment. That's fine. If you wanted to throw a question into the chat, I can always come back and go through the questions at the end and pick up those. If you're not sure, if there are elements about the assessment that you want further clarification about, I can answer those. But I'm now going to move on to the summative element of the assessment. So this is the bit that you're going to get the mark for. Okay, so the formative assessment is really important, and I want you to make best use of formative assessment opportunities. It's important that you do that. However, the formative assessment opportunities do not have an impact on your final grade. I hope they will improve your chances of getting a really good grade, but they do not have a direct connection to the final grade that you're going to get for this module. The thing that has a direct connection to your final mark is the summative assessment. This is what gives you your final mark. So formative is about developing, forming. So forming your understanding, improving your understanding, improving your performance through feedback, discussion, questioning, working with one another, working with me, etc., etc. That's the formative element. The summative assessment is the thing that you get at the end of the assessment that gives you the mark that goes into your grade profile. So the summative assessment for this module has two components. It might look more complicated than it's meant to be, but I'm going to talk through it now to be really clear. First thing, I guess, to say is 4th of January is your submission date, which is after Christmas. I was talking to some first years yesterday, and one of them was saying to me what she's finding really difficult is that when she was at college, her teachers would say, okay, here's some homework, you've got to hand in your homework in 2 days. And she knew what that meant. She's going to have to work really hard for 2 days, and then she'd be ready and she'd hand something in. And she says what she finds quite complicated about university is that we're giving her hand-in dates months away, and she's just worried about how to handle that. So the important thing here is that you've got a hand-in date in January, but for this year, it's really important that you don't think, okay, I can do this work on the 2nd of January or on the night of the 3rd of January and it's all going to be okay. It won't. I have to be really honest. You've got to start this process now, start thinking about this now. I'm going to talk about the sorts of things you might need to think about. You need to start reading now, start making notes, keep a clear record of the literature that you've looked at, so keep a record of the references that you've looked at, etc., etc. So you're already starting to think in a well-organized way about preparing for this assignment that you're going to hand in. The deadline is the 4th of January. That doesn't stop you from handing in on the 4th of December. That's fine. You could hand in a month in advance as far as I'm concerned. But what is important is you don't leave it until the last minute. And I'll just remind you, I'm going to go back to your pen portraits here. I love this. Student NC, academic strengths, good organisation skills. Excellent. Georgia, you're not anonymised, but great. Academic skills, organisation. Student A, flexibility and organisation. Brilliant. I've got student A again here, over here, planning and organisation. Planning and organisation come across really strongly. Student B, organisation. Brilliant. Student N, organisation. Student C, time management and planning. Excellent. Student A, time management. So all of you who've posted your pen portraits have flagged up that your skill is in organisation and planning, is in time management. So the time management kicks in now. For all of your third year work, you're going to be given these submission deadlines, and you need to start planning now. Working back from those submission deadlines, I would suggest strongly that you think, okay, I've got to hand in on the 4th of January. A minimum of 2 weeks before that, I'm going to have my final draft ready. A minimum of 2 weeks before the 4th of January. So that's going to be somewhere in the middle of December. That takes us to about, what, the 18th of December, before Christmas. You're going to have your best work ready to submit. Maybe 2 weeks before that, you've got a kind of really good working draft. Do you see what I mean? So you're working back from that deadline and identifying some other deadlines to make sure that you're in a really good place to submit on time your very best work, because the work in the third year makes a difference. Okay, what have you actually got to do? Okay, you have a choice with this module. So you can either write an essay, an evaluation of assessment approaches, 2,500 words, or you can do a presentation, evaluation of approaches, 2,500 words equivalent. For our purposes, that's going to be roughly a 15-minute presentation. Now, the reason why I'm offering you these alternatives is that last year, this always used to be an essay, this module, always used to be assessed through an essay. Last year, we switched it to a presentation. And what a lot of students did was they wrote an essay and read out their essay as their presentation. So they went through exactly the same process that they would have done if they were writing an essay. They wrote an essay and then they read their essay in their presentation. So I'm giving you a different approach this year. If you want to write an essay, write an essay. That's absolutely fine. If you want to do a presentation, do a presentation. That's absolutely fine. But so it stops you worrying. If you feel more comfortable with the essay, write the essay. If you're okay, what's the phrase? Kind of shooting from the hip, improvising a little bit more, having some notes, but being able to talk about your ideas spontaneously, then go for the presentation. But don't use the spontaneity as an excuse to leave preparation really late. So start to think now, okay, am I more comfortable with an essay or am I more comfortable with a presentation? To do your presentation, what I would look for is the submission of a PowerPoint presentation, but also I'd ask you to do a video. So you'd find a way, we can use a thing called Panopto, this thing I've talked to you about already. You have access to Panopto, so you'd do a Panopto presentation with slides and you'd talk about your ideas. So if that kind of appeals to you, great, do the presentation. If an essay appeals to you, great, do the essay. So start to think about that. There's no advantage in doing the presentation over the essay. You don't get kind of more marks for doing a presentation than an essay, or more marks for doing an essay than a presentation. It's marked in the same way. That's the main component. So the essay or the presentation, that's 90% of the module. And there's this other component here. It's the engagement tasks. This is going to be these are going to be activities which I am going to put into Aula, and I'm going to flag them up really, really clearly. Engagement task. There will be 5 of them. There will be straightforward, uncomplicated, And I hope some of them will be kind of quite interesting and fun. They won't take you a long time. They'll be flagged up engagement tasks, and you have to, I'm asking you to complete all of those 5 engagement tasks. They won't appear in 1 week. They will appear throughout the course on Aula. So you find the engagement task, you do it. Each time you do an engagement task, you need to capture evidence that you've done the engagement task. So what I would suggest you do is just do a screen grab, you know, control print screen, and put that screen grab into a Word document. So at the end of the module, you will have a Word document with 5 images in it, which show that you've completed the 5 engagement tasks. For example, one of the engagement tasks that I'm going to use is, I might use it a couple of times actually, is a quiz. So I'm going to put a couple of quizzes for you to do. Do the quiz, take a screen grab of your completed quiz score and post that, paste that into a Word document, for example. So that will be one of the engagement tasks. There are going to be 5 altogether. All you've got to do is complete the 5 engagement tasks. For example, if you do the quiz and you only get 4 out of 10, that's not a problem. You've done the engagement task. If you do the quiz and you get 1 out of 10, that's not a problem. You've done the engagement task. So the thing about the engagement tasks is you've got to do the engagement tasks and do all 5 of them. If you do all 5 engagement tasks, you get 10%. If you don't do the engagement tasks, you get 0% for that component. If you do only 4 of the engagement tasks, you get 0% for that component. So it's 10% or nothing. Okay, so look out for the flagged engagement tasks. Do the engagement tasks. Keep a record that you've done it, keep evidence that you've done it, pop it into a Word document, and at the end of the module, you hand that in as a second document alongside either your presentation or your essay. Okay, I'm going to come back to the main screen now because I bet there are some questions. So have a think about that. Any questions about that? The engagement tasks. Let's go for that first of all. Does that seem clear? Cool, thanks. Smashing, absolutely super. I'm pleased to hear that. That's great. Now, here's another reason why I'd love you to give a nudge to your fellow students who might not be with us today. I'm confident because you're here. I'm kind of not worried about you because I've talked to you about it. You're engaging, you're in the right place. You've worked out how it all works. You're going to be on Aula, you're going to be looking for the engagement tasks, you're going to be doing it, it's all sorted. The students I'm more worried about are the ones that aren't here now. So I'm putting this information on Aula, but could you know, your mates that you communicate with that you know aren't here at the moment, I will communicate with all of the students, but they need to know that as well. Okay. Asma, very good question. So regardless of how you do on engagement tasks, if you complete all 5, then you get 10%. Yes, absolutely. So let's just say, for example, I won't do 5 quizzes, I promise. I think I'm going to do 2 quizzes. I quite like quizzes. They're quite easy. They're simple for you to do. You just have to kind of tick boxes. And the satisfaction of doing really well will be with you. But all I'm looking for is that you've done the quiz. So let's say, Asma, let's say that I give you 5 quizzes, and let's say in the 5 quizzes, 3 of them you get 5 out of 5, 1 of them you get 3 out of 5, and 1 of them you get 1 out of 5. Because you've done the 5 quizzes, you get the 10%. Asma, is that clear? Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, do the tasks and you tick off that 10%. So the way that the final mark of this module is going to work is like this. I'm going to write it in the chat so it's clear for you. So let's say you get 70% for your essay, okay, and you get 10% for the engagement tasks because you've done all 5 of the engagement tasks, okay. Now, you need to just calm yourselves for a moment because that doesn't mean you're going to get 80%. The 70% is the 90% of the module. So the way to think about it, and I apologize for this, I can't think of another way of explaining it. So 90% is the same as 0.9. Think about your maths there. 90% isn't the whole, it's 0.9 of something. So that would be 70% multiplied by 0.9. Any mathematicians out there? Equals, I'm going to tell you, 63%, because 70 times 0.9 is 63. Okay. And then it will be the 63% plus the 10%. So if you get, basically, if you get the 10%, you're getting 100% for the engagement tasks. That's 10%, gives you a rounded total of 73% for the module. Okay. If you were to get, no, Fama, they're not. I haven't flagged up any engagement tasks yet, so just calm yourself down. Just spend some time getting used to. I'm going to plant them to encourage you to engage with all of the Aula resources. So you'll find them. They'll be really clearly flagged up, and they'll be spread out through the module. Safia, does each engagement task have a deadline? No, the only deadline you have is the 4th of January. Okay. So the best thing to do, I mean, my recommendation would be to do them when they pop up. Okay, do the engagement task each when it pops up in the week, get it out of the way, but keep the evidence so that you've got this document that you've saved somewhere in your files, and that you're adding to that with each engagement task. And at the end, at some point at the end of November or early December, you'll have that document all done, ready to submit, and you've saved it with a really memorable file name like AIE engagement tasks, so you don't get it lost with other files that you might have. Okay. Cool. I guess a thing to think about now, because you've already in your pen portraits, you've talked about your organisation skills. A thing to think about now is how are you organising all of the stuff that you're doing in your 3rd year? That's really important for you to get a really good handle on this. I would strongly recommend that you save all of your work in progress in some kind of cloud. So on maybe Google Documents, for example, that would be a good place to save them. The number of students who email me, usually about 5 minutes after the hand-in deadline, saying, Andrew, my whole life is falling apart. All of my computer's exploded. You know, the dog's eaten my computer. My computer has fallen down a well. You know, everything's gone wrong and I can't access any of my files. Save your documents, as Ali says there. You know, OneNote is a really good thing. So find a place on the cloud where you can save your files, so that if you have a catastrophe, a dog ate my computer catastrophe, or my computer fell down a well catastrophe, or my computer caught fire catastrophe, it's not a problem. It's unfortunate. Obviously, I would hate for your computer to catch fire, but it's not the end of the world, because your work will be saved somewhere else and you can access it at an internet cafe or on an LSBU computer, or it's somewhere so you can access it. It's really, really important this year. The other thing to bear in mind is that for all of your files that you are intending to submit for marking, you give them a really distinct title. So as I suggested, engagement tasks AIE, it's clear what that document is. If you're doing the essay for assessment in education, label that file, final version AIE assessment, so that you don't get that modelled up with a kind of draft version you did back in November. You know the one that you actually want to submit. So when you come to upload that document, you have the right document. You don't accidentally upload the wrong document and then kind of a couple of days later say, oh no, my life's falling apart. I've uploaded the wrong document. Can you help me? Okay, so two important things: a cloud storage and clear labeling. If you don't have a cloud storage mechanism, another thing you could do is you could send an email to yourself with the file attached. That's a good way of not losing stuff. So let's say, particularly with final assignments, send it to yourself as an attachment. Again, that means that if you have a catastrophe, you can still access that file. It's safe on the on the email cloud. Okay, it's coming up to 3 o'clock, which is when I was going to stop. I think I've covered all of the stuff that I really wanted to cover. I'm just going to go back to where I was before. I'm going to just return briefly back to the live session. So we've got the live content here. If you haven't had a chance yet, could you have a look at the pre-session activities? So I would strongly recommend you spend, that's week 2. You could look forward to week 2 as well. Week 1. Have a look at the David Bowd video. It's short, it's focused, and I think it's a good way of getting your thinking around assessment going. Do the pen portrait activity if you haven't done it yet. Just follow the guidance here and have a look at the article, The Purposes of Assessment. And finally, just let me check on resources. I think, yeah, there you go. So if you go into the resources list, you've also got a direct link to the module reading list in the LSBU library. So that's a useful thing to look at if you haven't yet looked at the module list. What I've aimed to do with that is to make sure that all of the module readings are available as ebooks. So that unless you really want to, you don't need to come into the LSBU library on campus. You can do all of your reading from the security of your own home or from an internet cafe or wherever else you're planning to access resources. Okay. Let's have a look down here. Georgia, the assignment guidance. So, sorry, the assessment guidance is there. Let me show you where it is. I'll just go back into Aula again. So at the moment, I've put it to this week, live session, and it is just there. It's just nestled there underneath the content of today's live session. So it's just there. Okay, let me go back to questions again. Yeah, thanks, Danielle. That's really helpful. Gelly, look in your spam emails. Danielle's just found it. Great, super. Asma, no, it's a single module, so it's only 20 credits. This module. Okay. No, the dog's still fast asleep. Ali, thank goodness. Asma, yeah, it's a single module, so it's a 20 credit module. So for in your third year, you have AIE, that is a 20 credit module. You have KEG, Contextualizing Education Globally, that's a 20 credit module. You have CIE, Contemporary Issues in Education, that's a 20 credit module, so 20, 40, 60 credits. You have Project, that's a 40 credit module, so 60 plus 40 is 100. And then your final 20 credit module, you have a choice between two modules. You've got either Creativity in Education, that's 20 credits, or you have Educational Autobiography, that's 20 credits. So one or the other. And I think if Fabienne hasn't contacted you about that already, she will be in touch with you soon, because we need to let Melanie, the course administrator, know whether you are choosing Educational Autobiography or Creativity in Education. So 5 modules this year: KEG, 20 credits, CIE, 20 credits, this module, Assessment in Education, 20 credits, 40 credits is a single module for Project, that's a double module, it's 40 credits, and then finally the choice of either Creativity or Educational Autobiography. Okay, any other questions? Any other questions that would be useful for everybody? So what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to, if you've asked me all your big questions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch off the recording, and then I will process the recording through Panopto, and I will put onto Aula, so you can access the recording of this live session on Aula. Tell your friends about it so they come and have a look at it as well. And then I will turn off the recording, so if any of you want to ask me individual questions, I won't be recording those individual questions. George, I'll check on the deadline. It's not super urgent, and we need to give you information about those 2 modules before we ask you to choose, so don't worry about that. We'll let you know. Hello, Kate. I suddenly see you now. Hello. Asma, does anyone know if the project is for this semester or next semester? It's across both semesters, Asma. So it starts, as you may know, it started last Thursday. Session 2 is this Thursday coming. We've got 3 or 4 sessions before Christmas, and then the remaining sessions happen after Christmas. So it's spread across both semesters, and your hand-in for project is not until May 2021. However, project is the biggie, okay? You need to start thinking about project now. Because it's May, don't put it off until March or April. Start to think about it now. Georgia, it's for both semesters. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, spot on. I think I should employ you, Georgia, as a kind of advisor. That's excellent. Was the first session recorded by any chance? Yes, Asma. Yes, it was recorded by any chance, and it's now available on Moodle, because we are using Moodle for project. So I'm using Aula for you. The only module that is on Aula is Assessment in Education. Everything else is going to be on Moodle. So Asma, you can have a look at that on Moodle, on the VLE. Pleasure. It's all there, Asma. Yeah. Thank Panopto. Pleasure. Shanti, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to remain online for anybody that would like to chat about anything. So I'm just turning off the recording now, and it's